The smoke was visible from 3 blocks away. By the time I reached my food truck, flames were already consuming the kitchen I built with my savings. Firefighters worked to contain the blaze, but I knew everything I'd worked for was gone. My mother-in-law, Eleanor, stood watching from her Mercedes, a satisfied smirk playing across her perfectly made-up face. "Perhaps now you'll consider a proper career," she called out. Playing with food was never suitable for my son's wife. I didn't bother responding. In the 8 months since I'd married James, Eleanor had made her disapproval clear. She'd wanted him to marry Caroline Wright, the daughter of her country club friends. Instead, he'd fallen in love with me, a culinary school dropout turned food truck owner. What Eleanor didn't know was that I hadn't dropped out by choice. My father's medical bills had forced me to leave school early. But while working 3 restaurant jobs to pay those bills, I'd learned more about real kitchen operations than any classroom could teach. The food truck had been my dream. Mimi's Global Comfort served fusion dishes that combined my Korean heritage with American classics. Within 6 months, we had regular customers lining up around the block. Local food blogs started featuring our Korean BBQ tacos and kimchi grilled cheese sandwiches. James supported me completely, even taking lunch breaks to help during rush hours. That's what had drawn me to him. Unlike his mother, he valued passion over pedigree. But today, as I watched my dream turn to ashes, he was away on a business trip. The fire marshal approached as the flames died down. "Ma'am, you'll want to see this." He led me to the truck's electrical panel, pointing out clear signs of tampering. "Someone deliberately overloaded your system. We found accelerant traces too. This was no accident." I thought of Eleanor's satisfied smirk, her perfectly timed appearance at the scene. But I kept my face neutral as I filed the police report. Let her think she'd won. Back in our apartment, I opened my laptop and pulled up files I'd been keeping secret. Spreadsheets tracking 2 years of profit margins. Business plans I'd been refining. Letters of intent from investors who tried my food and seen the potential. My phone buzzed. Eleanor calling, probably to offer fake sympathy. I let it go to voicemail. "Darling, I heard about your little setback. Perhaps this is a sign. The Wright family's investment firm is always looking for receptionists. With your background, that's probably more suitable." I played the message twice, making sure my recording software captured it clearly. Then I called Detective Rodriguez, who'd taken my case. "I have something you might want to hear." The investigation moved quickly. Security cameras from nearby businesses had caught Eleanor's Mercedes parked near my truck at 3 a.m. Her phone's GPS confirmed her location, and her message, suggesting she knew about the fire before it was publicly reported, sealed her fate. When James returned the next day, I had to hold him back from confronting his mother immediately. "Wait," I urged. "I have a better idea." Eleanor was arrested during her weekly salon appointment. The society pages would later call it the highlight of hysteria. How she'd run through the streets with foils still in her hair, screaming about family loyalty and teaching ungrateful daughters-in-law their place. But while Eleanor posted bail and hired expensive lawyers, I was busy. The insurance payout for the truck was substantial, especially with evidence of deliberate destruction. My documented business success helped secure a small business loan. And those investor letters I've been sitting on, they were still valid. 3 months after Eleanor burned my truck, I signed a lease on a vacant restaurant space downtown. The same food blogs that had loved my truck started buzzing about the upcoming opening of Mimi's Global Kitchen. My mother-in-law's trial was set for the same week as my restaurant's soft opening. She sent flying monkeys, mutual acquaintances begging me to drop the charges. "Think of the family reputation," they pleaded. "She was just trying to help you find a better path." I thought of my father, who taught me to cook Korean dishes between hospital stays, of the customers who'd supported my truck rain or shine, of James, who believed in me even when his mother called me trash. That was family. Eleanor was just an arsonist with good hair. The restaurant opening was a sensation. Local media covered the story of the food truck owner who rose from the ashes. My fusion dishes, refined but still true to their street food roots, earned rave reviews. Reservations filled up months in advance. Eleanor's lawyers approached with a deal. She pleaded guilty to reduced charges if I spoke at her sentencing about forgiveness and family. They suggested it would help my business to show mercy. I countered with my own offer. Full restitution for the truck, a public admission of guilt, and mandatory psychiatric treatment. In return, I'd recommend probation instead of jail time. After all, I told her lawyer, I want her healthy enough to watch my success. The day Eleanor took the plea deal, I finalized contracts for 2 more restaurant locations. Turns out burning down my food truck had only proven what my investors already knew. I could create something amazing from nothing. And now I had the resources to think bigger. James supported every decision, even when it meant cutting contact with his mother. She tried to destroy your dream, he said. She destroyed our relationship instead. Local business magazines started calling me a rising star in the restaurant scene. Eleanor, under house arrest and attending court-mandated therapy, had to read about my success in the same society pages that once featured her charity luncheons. One year to the day after the fire, I parked my old food truck, repaired but no longer needed, outside Eleanor's mansion. The note on the door read, "Since you're so interested in my career, here's where it started. Maybe you can learn something too." Eleanor's court-mandated therapy sessions coincided with the opening of my 3rd restaurant location. While she learned about impulse control and accepting boundaries, I was being featured in Forbes' 30 Under 30 list for revolutionizing fusion cuisine in the restaurant industry. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Her attempt to teach me my place had launched my empire. Each new Mimi's Global Kitchen location drew bigger crowds than the last. My Korean-American fusion concept had tapped into something special, comfort food that crossed cultural boundaries. One morning, I received an unexpected call from Caroline Wright, the woman Eleanor had wanted James to marry. "I'm investing in restaurants now," she said carefully. "Your expansion plans are impressive. Would you consider taking on a silent partner?" I thought of Eleanor's endless comparisons, how Caroline's business degree made her a more suitable choice. "I appreciate the offer," I replied, "but I prefer partners who believed in me before I was successful." The call wasn't entirely surprising. My 4th location had just opened in the same upscale neighborhood where Eleanor used to host her charity luncheons. A society crowd that once looked down on my food truck now waited weeks for a reservation. James came home one evening with interesting news. "Mom's trying to sell her house," he said. The legal fees and restitution payments depleted her savings, and apparently none of her country club friends will hire her as an investment consultant anymore. I was reviewing plans for our 5th location, our biggest yet. The investors who believed in my food truck days were now backing a full-scale expansion. "That's unfortunate," I replied, not looking up from the blueprints. "Maybe she should learn to cook." 2 years after the fire, Mimi's Global Kitchen was a recognized brand. Food Network wanted to feature our story. Major publishers approached me about cookbooks. Eleanor, meanwhile, had been forced to sell her Mercedes and move into a small condo. The real twist came when her condo association went bankrupt. With her assets frozen and her reputation ruined, Eleanor faced homelessness. That's when I decided to offer her a deal. "The food truck is still yours," I told her during our first meeting in 2 years. "I've had it fully repaired. There's a commissary kitchen you can use, and I'll even share some basic recipes. You wanted to teach me about real careers. Here's your chance to learn one." She stared at me, her perfectly maintained facade cracking. "You expect me to work in a food truck?" "No, Mother Eleanor," I smiled. "I expect you to live in it, unless you have a better option." The society pages loved the story. Local restaurant mogul offers fresh start to mother-in-law who burned her business. Eleanor's court-appointed therapist called it an opportunity for growth. James just called it perfect justice. Eleanor actually tried, I'll give her that. But after years of looking down on food service people, she struggled with the basics. Her first attempt at kimchi gave 3 people food poisoning. Her Korean BBQ tacos were dubbed culturally and culinarily offensive by local food critics. Meanwhile, Mimi's Global Kitchen expanded to 10 locations across 3 states. I launched a line of signature sauces that sold out in premium grocery stores. The same country club that had once rejected my membership application now begged to host our corporate events. I never understood, Eleanor admitted during one of our mandatory monthly meetings, part of her probation requirements. "How did you make it look so easy?" "It wasn't easy," I replied. "I just cared more about the work than the status. Something you might want to think about while you're serving hot dogs from my old truck." The final twist came when Eleanor's food truck actually started making money, not from her cooking, but from people wanting selfies with the woman who tried to stop Mimi's Global Kitchen. she'd become a tourist attraction, a cautionary tale about underestimating the wrong person. 3 years after the fire, I opened our flagship location in the renovated mansion that used to host Eleanor's society parties. The grand opening was covered by national media. My father, now recovered, helped me develop a special menu combining his traditional Korean recipes with my modern techniques. Eleanor wasn't invited to the opening, but she parked the food truck outside anyway. She'd finally learned to make decent kimchi, though her technique would make my grandmother cry. Some nights, I'd see her watching through the restaurant's windows, seeing the empire that rose from her attempt to put me in my place. James and I recently welcomed our first child, a daughter we named after my grandmother. Eleanor sends her handmade baby clothes purchased with food truck earnings. I donate them to charity and send back copies of our latest restaurant reviews. The food truck where it all started sits in a special display at our flagship location. Next to it, a wall of press clippings tells our story, from street food to scandal to success. Eleanor's mugshot hangs among them, a reminder that sometimes your biggest obstacle becomes your best marketing. Last week, a young chef approached me after eating at our newest location. "I'm saving for my own food truck," she said, "but my family thinks it's beneath me." I gave her my card and the same advice my father once gave me. Success doesn't come from other people's approval. It comes from surviving their disapproval and proving them wrong. Eleanor still runs the food truck 3 days a week, part of her probation requirements. She's not allowed within 100 feet of any Mimi's global kitchen location, except during our monthly meetings. Sometimes I send over dishes from our new menu development sessions, just to show her what she could have supported instead of destroyed. The restaurant empire keeps growing. We're opening international locations next year, starting with Seoul, a homecoming my grandmother would have loved. Eleanor asked if she could franchise a food truck there. I told her to focus on mastering hot dogs first. My story is taught in business schools now. How a burned-down food truck led to a restaurant revolution. Students always ask what I learned from Eleanor's Sabotaged. The answer is simple. Success is the best revenge, but making your enemies serve mediocre hot dogs from your old food truck is a close second.